My computer.
Hey, I think you're muted.
Oh, hey everybody. I'm talking to Andy on the side. I haven't started the meeting yet, so sorry if that was kind of confusing.
Sweet. Welcome to our Diamond Zoom call today with special guest Jeremy Breckheisen. And Jeremy, I heard Laura pronounce your name the other day, and I'm like, have I been slaughtering your name this whole time?
You said it right.
That's right? Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's easy to slaughter my name. Sometimes I'll joke with people and say, it's pronounced Smith. They're like, wait, what?
We are so grateful to have him here with us. And this is something that we've been looking forward to for a long time. We love what happened at convention, the energy, the magic that Jeremy brought by bringing some of those initial insights into strengths and how thinking based on strengths can change everything. You know, this morning we got to get a special call from our oldest son. That's why my eyes look like this, because he was on in flight, and we got to talk to him on a layover, and it was so sweet to hear his progress. And I think, wow, you know, our kids get to grow up with a different mentality than we did. I also had an energy worker talking on the phone. You know, we just got off of that call. And what am I working on again? My thinking that I'm doing something wrong and how it was pre-programmed, you know, and it's just been there from when I was a kid. And how beautiful to shift that thinking to more of what is going right and what are we doing right and what are our strengths and what do we have to offer to the world by knowing those strengths. So I know that taking the StrengthsFinder 2.0 test has shifted my awareness of myself and my own gifts, and has done the same for Andy. And then bringing that in to have more understanding as a couple has been brilliant and amazing for us. Opened up new understanding and less I would say just the craziness when we don't understand each other. We get less of that and more of the understanding of each other and each other's needs. And then it's been so fun to watch that trickle down into, we had a gathering with our main line, and we were able to take our StrengthsFinders results and see those mapped out and see how we could each use our strengths in building and in doTERRA to just take our influence to a whole new level, take the impact that we're making in the world to a whole new level. So I am super excited to expose many of you to this. I know we're going to have some magic at leadership that's going to bring more insight, but we just felt like it was time right now to be able to look at some ways that we as leaders, you as diamonds and above, that, you know, we have a serious stewardship. There's some realities that we all feel, that we're all holding, and with that stewardship comes increased opportunities to grow. And we wanted to give you this opportunity and have strengths really come into you and who you are, and then understand how to take that to your team and your culture. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to a StrengthsFinders guru. I love what Jeremy has done. He is rocking Diamond Club right now, gold in doTERRA, and a partner at Gallup, and just about to move to London, the Gallups London office here in a month or so. So we've been blessed by your work, Jeremy, and just so happy to have you with us here today.
Well, I appreciate that. Thanks. That's a good intro. I think every day should start off by getting introduced. Having somebody introduce you so you can just walk out like, wait, before I exit the bedroom, somebody needs to announce me. That felt good. So, all right. Well, thank you so much. And I think we have until the top of the hour. So I want to make sure I make the best use of our time. And I'm going to level set just a little bit, just in case some people don't actually, maybe you didn't see my convention speech. Maybe you've never taken the assessment. Maybe you don't know what this is. So I'm just going to level set for just a little bit on that. And then I'm going to go further into that. First of all, I looked at some of the side note chats that have been said. And Heather, I'm sorry if I mistreated you in the elevator and said that I didn't want to ride with you again. It sounds like you knew that was a joke. All right, good. So I want you to realize that most people don't know how to focus on strengths. They think they know, but they don't. And when I start talking about what it really means, I think people realize, oh yeah, you're right. And so what I want to do is just kind of speak to some of those things. And I'm going to share my screen here and just show you guys some slides. Some of them may be familiar. And so I just want to anchor you to what's going on in all of Gallups data. And if you guys can't see this, just unmute and say, dude, I can't see or I can't hear. So first of all, we know, Gallup knows things about the entire planet. I mean, we have the first world poll that ever existed that represents 98% of the world's population. We have people who literally go and do face-to-face interviews in the rice paddies of China or in the jungles of Indonesia. And we make sure that we do cognitive testing. This is robust, legit surveying of the entire planet. And so if you were to ask us what the most important discovery we've ever had was, we'd know exactly what to tell you. And it's that the will of the world has changed. Now, what do we mean by that? Well, what we mean, we go all the way back to the beginning of our company when George Gallup said, if democracy is about the will of the people, then someone should find out what that will is. Kind of makes sense, right? And so he created a set of questions that identified what he called the Great American Dream and eventually became the Great Global Dream. And the answers were things like owning my own property, having a family, worshiping the God I want to worship, peace and freedom. And it was different in different places around the world. But in the 1990s and 2000s, there was this shift that took place. The will of the world literally changed. And the number one thing that people said they wanted was a good job. Now, think about that. Think about how that changes things. Imagine a woman in the 1950s in America saying family, and now imagine a woman today saying a good job. Does that change her life decisions? Does that change how many kids, or if she has kids, or when she gets married, or if she gets married? What we were interested in was how it changed what people expected of work. And we found 6 big shifts that represent the billions of data points that we've gathered since the 1930s. And these are new expectations for leaders. And some of the things that we found were, first of all, people are less interested in a paycheck and they're more interested in a purpose. They still want the paycheck. We all still want to get paid, right? But if it comes without a purpose, if it comes without a cause or a mission, and I'm not talking about a mission statement of an organization that we deliver our products in a really inspiring way. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about delivering a mission that's bigger than doTERRA, that's bigger than Nike, that's bigger than Wells Fargo, and you feel like you're part of something special. The next thing is people are less interested in satisfaction benefits and more interested in development. In the Bay Area, we have Google, and they give you free lunches and ping pong tables, and you walk on Google's campus, they've got like pop-up workout stations where they've got workout machines outside that people can come and get into, and they're doing rope training outside, and they've got lunches all over the place. But nobody joined Google because they heard there was free food. They joined because they thought, wow, this is going to be a great company, and it's going to develop me, and I'm going to grow. People will actually buy their own lunch if they feel they can get developed. As I go through these 6 things, think about how doTERRA uniquely offers these, and how your story, when you invite someone to join you in this business or in any way, then these are the things that you can speak to that the whole world is expecting and wanting, and that not very many people are actually getting. For example, with purpose, we found in our data set that only about 20% of people are thriving in a purpose. Most people are lacking in purpose, and they're looking for something. I asked one of my trainings for my team, I said, what is the number one reason you joined doTERRA? And they said, I was looking for a mission or cause that I could be a part of. So I think this is something that matters quite a bit. The third shift that we see here is people are less interested in having a command and control boss and more interested in having a coach. That doesn't mean you want some sort of soft, fuzzy hug. It just means that you don't want someone who's telling you what to do. You want someone who's working with you to accomplish what you want to do. And coaches, you think of the best coaches in the world, they can get in your face, right? They can grab you by the face mask and tell you some truths you need to hear. But it's really about us now, and it's not about them. And the reason we expect this one, we dug into it more. I mean, we were raised by a generation who said, I have a crap boss, don't deal with this. And they wrote songs about taking this job and shoving it, and movies about Dolly Parton doing terrible things to her boss, right? Like, we grew up with like hating bosses. In fact, our surveys show that the number one person you don't want to spend time with is your boss. And so do not be someone's boss. It's not a good thing anyway. But they do need a coach. Everyone needs a coach. There's 7 billion ways to live a life and 7 billion ways to coach them. And everybody needs that. The annual review, or just being reviewed in general, being judged. People are less interested in being judged and rated, and they're more interested in having a conversation about their performance, about what could get better, about how they could change and grow. And they want it to be future-oriented, not past-oriented. They're less interested in you focusing on their weaknesses and more interested in focusing on their strengths. And we're going to spend a lot of time on that. But the whole point here is to show you this is one of the 6 big, massive shifts taking place in the world. It's not just a cute assessment that feels fuzzy. This is a global demand. And people want this, and they're not getting it. Last one here is people are less interested in climbing the corporate ladder and building their career, and they're more interested in building a life, architecting a life, and realizing that we have, there's so many lines that are grayed with technology right now. And companies think it's great if you want to check your email at home, but they don't think it's great if you want to check on your kids at work, right? And so they often don't honor the life of a mother. They don't honor the life of a millennial who's looking for something different. They don't honor the life of very many people. And in fact, they treat you like an employee when we all just want to be treated like a person, a whole person. And so this is what the whole world is demanding. But the world is slowing down in development. We looked at GDP per capita growth. This is like the revenue of the United States and the revenue growth. And it's been slowly declining since 1966. No matter which party was in there, it's been dropping. Our productivity as a country has been declining. We've grown into this weakness-based culture that's just focused on our weaknesses, and it's not been working. The other thing we measure is employee engagement. We know how engaged employees are, and we see that we've been measuring this for 16 years, and it's not been changing. So the expectations of work have changed, but the workplace is stagnant. It's not changing at all, creating this cognitive dissonance for people. And some statistics I don't have on here is 91% of people who changed jobs had to change companies to do it. 51% of people in the United States are looking for a job right now. I think the statistic is let's put it this way. 54% of women who are working, who have children under the age of 18, would prefer to be working outside the home. Most working mothers would rather be home. It's not worth it. It's not that they don't want to work. It's just that the conditions of the workplace don't honor what they need. So what's going on? First of all, leaders need help. They need to know how to transform current conversations. They need simplified tools that make it easy. And they need help. They need to be coached through the change themselves. Sometimes coaches need coaches, right? And so some of the biggest things that we found with strengths is that it solves that productivity problem that we see with the GDP per capita growth happening in the United States. Actually, productivity improves by 8 to 18% when someone knows what their strengths are. That's just they took the Clifton Strengths Assessment. That's it. And they improved performance that much. That includes sales data. It included performance ratings. It included productivity scores. And then lastly, strengths drives engagement. So we asked people at work, my supervisor ignores me, focuses on my weaknesses, or focuses on my strengths. And then we looked at how engaged they were. Only 2% were engaged at work if their boss ignored them. The worst thing you can do to a human being is ignore them. 45% were engaged when you focused on their weaknesses. So actually just paying attention to someone is magical. You can even be terrible at it and it's engaging. But if you focus on their strengths, it grows dramatically. And I got to move everyone's faces for a second. It grows to 61%. I was like, I think it's 61%. 61% are engaged when you focus on their strengths. So I'm just going to check some of the chats and make sure someone's not saying, hey, okay, everybody is doing okay. All right. All right. This is not the same as the talk from convention, just so you know. All right. Just answering those questions. All right. So having said that, I think that kind of lets you know why this is important and why strengths matters. I want to just, you guys have seen speed reading when we did this together. I want to point this out right here. This is an important part of what we're going to talk about today. I want to talk to you a little bit more about this, but then I'm going to go into this tool. And you may or may not have this tool, but I'm going to talk all about it and teach you how to use it. And my goal is today that you learn how to coach your team. Okay, that's the outcome. I want you to learn how to better coach your team. So this equation is critical, and it's what a strength comprises. So talent is what we measured in you when you took the StrengthsFinder assessment. It's a natural way of thinking, feeling, or behaving. It's raw, potentially. It may not be developed. It may get in your way sometimes. It may help you sometimes. And if you haven't been aware of it, it's probably been the one in charge. As you make an investment in your talent and you spend time practicing or developing your skills or building your knowledge base, then it creates a multiplicative effect that creates strength, the ability to consistently provide near perfect performance. Now, if you guys watched my speech at convention, you'll remember I helped you realize how you do something like this, how you've done it in your life. Remember the handwriting exercise we did, where I had you sign your name as fast as you could, and then I had you do it with your non-dominant hand, and everyone was laughing, and they were like, how do I even hold my pen? And then I had you do it with your dominant hand, and you could even think about other things while you did it. And the quality went up, and the number of times went up. Well, that's because at a very young age, you took a kind of dominant side of your body and you invested in it to the point where now near perfect performance, you can sign your name in a way that a bank can recognize it. So that's one area of your life, and it's a good analogy for how you should be investing in your talents in a way that takes it to strength. Okay? So let me just point out a couple other things here. I think this is important to know that when you focus on your strengths, that you're 3 times as likely to report having an excellent quality of life and 6 times as likely to be engaged in your job. Now, this is important to realize that it's not just about manipulating performance. This is actually your whole life gets better. And the reason it gets better is because your daily experience has changed. You're able to feel like every day is better because you're more energized. And some of the data I showed at convention, again, this is just level setting, just in case someone wasn't there, was this data that I showed, where if people focused on their strengths up to 10 hours in the day, the amount of happiness they felt the previous day went up, the amount of energy they felt went up, the saying they smiled or laughed a lot the previous day went up. And it looks like maybe you should stop at like 7 to 9 hours and it gets worse at 10, but that's not statistically significant, just so you know. And then stress dropped, worry dropped, and even reporting of physical pain dropped. I mean, focusing on strengths works like essential oils almost, right? Think about all these things on the left: happiness, stress, and how many times have you taught a natural solutions class and you said, oh, I've got an oil for happiness. Oh, I've got an oil for energy. Oh, I've got an oil for worry. Well, focusing on your strengths honors the same principles that essential oils honor. That there's something right with your body, that your body can heal itself, but it just needs to be reminded how. It just needs to be used with more intentionality. And so these are some things that I think are important to understand about the strengths movement and why it matters. What we didn't talk about at convention was the actual StrengthsFinder assessment. So its official name is called the Clifton Strengths Assessment right now, sometimes called Clifton Strengths Finder or Strengths Finder, all the same assessment. And the way we develop this, so psychologists, when they look at your brain, find that it's the most active at the age of 3. And at the age of 3, you've learned to talk, you've learned to walk, and you've done amazing things, but your mind is so active that it needs to create some efficiencies. And so it starts to go through a process called pruning and starts to find super highways. And by the time you're at the age of 15, most of that pruning has been completed. It's kind of scary to think that who you are at 15 is kind of who you are for the rest of your life. I know, when you think back to being 15. But this is something where that's why we say about age 15, you can take the StrengthsFinder assessment and your results will be pretty much the same for the rest of your life. Now, an important part of the StrengthsFinder assessment to know is that God didn't create StrengthsFinder, Gallup did. Therefore, it's not divine revelation. So will it change if you take it a second time? It will adjust a little bit. And yes, it can change. But for the most part, we find it stays the same. We've done test, retest reliability on it. And it's the most reliable assessment in the world for that. But it's not perfect, and you're not perfect. And so those two imperfections come together, and you can see some shuffling. I recommend that you not just have your top 5 results, especially at the diamond level. I recommend you have your full 34 results. Because an important point of this is that all 34 talent themes that Gallup has identified are in you. It's not, oh, I don't have that, or I do have that. It's either it's dominant or it's not dominant. It gives you energy, or you can do it. It just doesn't give you energy. So it's, instead of thinking of it as what you can or cannot do, it's about what you will or won't do. And so an example of that is the talent theme of woo. I have that in my top 5. It stands for winning others over. And if you put me in a big group of people, I will bounce around and meet everybody in that group. I just can't help it. It's like achieving things. And I'm just like with someone, after about 5 minutes, my leg starts to bounce. I even feel a little guilty, like, am I a normal person? Do I not care about what they're saying? But I just need to bounce around and go talk to 20 people. And when I come back to them, I'm super interested in their story again. And my woo just wants to meet as many people as possible. And at the end of that 2-hour party with all those 50 people that I met, I'm energized. I'm ready for the after party. I love when I'm in China. I'm like, let's do karaoke. Let's go. You know, but imagine if you're a relator. Relators, by the way, if you read that and you read realtor, you were like, what? I'm supposed to sell real estate? No, it's relator. And relators are all about one-to-one relationships. And they love going deep and having deep friendships. So you can imagine a woo as being like an inch deep and a mile wide. And you can imagine a relator being an inch wide and a mile deep. They love to go deep. So at that party, what's most natural for them is to find their friend and spend the whole party with their friend, right? Now, if I told that relator, if I was their boss and I said, you've got to meet everybody here, or you're building a doTERRA business and you want to meet everybody there, and you just know that's the right thing you got to do, take advantage of this. Can a relator do it? Are they incapable of meeting people? No, they can totally go and meet everybody. They can meet all 50 people. They might even be able to do it faster than a woo. But how are they going to feel at the end of that night? Exhausted, right? And so there's an example of how I'm saying this is not about what you can or cannot do. You can do any of these, but it's about what you will or won't do naturally, what will give you energy. So just keep that in mind as we talk about this, and I think you should probably consider getting your full 34 if you haven't. All right, so that's pretty good level setting. If there are any questions about the assessment itself, feel free to stop me. Feel free to ask me questions about it, and I can dig into it deeper. All right? So I'm going to stop sharing here so I can show you some things. All right. Was that okay? Was it all right if we level set it like that and just helped everybody do that? All right. Okay. Wasn't too much time. But so I want to show you, if you don't have these, I'm going to teach you how to use it so you'll be even more excited to get it. But these are called the Theme Insight cards. And if you don't have these, you can get these at Gallup.com, and you just click on the shop link at the top, and you just search for Theme Insight cards. This is probably Gallup's best coaching tool they've ever created. I know the guy who did it. Yeah, there you go. Lourdes is holding hers up. Good job. So there you go. So this is something where it goes through each theme and it gives you information about that theme that you don't have in the report. And it kind of gives you a quick summary. So I'll show you one of the cards just so you can see it. So you can see this is Achiever, and it goes through and it just gives you some quick, simple statements. So when I am coaching someone brand new, which I did last night on my doTERRA team, I got on there and I just walked through and I literally read to her the card. Now, she didn't know I was reading the card. I didn't feel guilty not telling her either. And I just walked through and I said, you know, you have Achiever and you are a hard worker. You set the pace for production. Your contribution is this intensity and stamina of effort. And they're like, you're reading my soul. And I'm like, actually, I'm reading the card. Right? And their need is the freedom to work at their own pace. They love completing tasks. They hate a lack of diligence. A metaphor is you love completing a race or getting to the finish line. A barrier label, how people might negatively view you because they don't understand you, is sometimes you think work is more important than people. And actually that can happen. That's a dark side of a talent, right? These are all neutral. They're not good or bad. How you use them is good or bad. And to help you kind of understand a little bit better, a theme contrast is that achievers say, I want to get it done, while an activator says, I want to get it started. An achiever says, I'm all about intense diligence, while an intellectual says, I'm all about intense thinking. So I just went through that card. See how powerful that was? Just walking through that one card, and you're able to tell someone about themselves, and they're like taking lots of notes, and they think this is amazing, because it is. And so I want to teach you all the different ways that you can use this deck of cards so that you can be more capable to focus on your people's strengths. Because I think it's great to have me around, but guess what? There's only one of me. And I'm moving to London, and I'm in Diamond Club, and I work for Gallup, and I'm trying to close $10 million contracts with Fortune 500 companies, and I can't come coach your team. So I want to make sure that you have the capability to be able to do this yourself and build that. Now, I'm going to be working with doTERRA Corporate to put in together a lot of other things that we can do together and partner with them on ways that you can focus on your strengths. So it's not just an assessment. But I want you to also have some capabilities and abilities outside of that today. So when we look at this, there are different components on this card. There is, first of all, probably what I think is the most important component, and it's the need of every talent theme. And so the need, if this gets violated, you go into a fight-flight mode, where you find yourself becoming defensive, you find yourself wanting to go against whatever someone's trying to get you to do. You might even find yourself wanting to run away and be done and quit and go away and cry. You know, it's emotional when you're in a fight-flight mode. It's a survival technique that your body's going through, right? And you don't know why, because you don't understand your talents maybe, but your need has been violated. So for example, the need of an activator is less discussion and more action. So imagine if you have activator, you might relate to this, and you might realize, oh my goodness, this meeting is taking forever. I just want to get out of this meeting. See how all of a sudden you have that flight mentality? You just want to get away? Or your activator is like, I'm gonna end this meeting. See how the fight comes in? And you're like, this meeting's done. This thing's going nowhere. It's just time to get going, guys. And all of a sudden it kicks in because your need is being violated. Now, That's important for you to know. That's important for everyone around you to know. So what I like to do is I like to make a list of my top 10 needs. I look at my top 10 strengths and I've written out all my needs right under each other so that I can see what they are and I can see the patterns in all my needs. And when I feel frustrated or overwhelmed or like I want to run away or fight against something, I realize I'm in a fight-flight mood. What theme has been violated? And I love being able to go to that language and look at which theme has been violated. So I love to just know that about myself and figure out what's going on. Now, a great thing to do with your spouse or with your upline is to give them that list of 10 needs and say, could you memorize this? Please learn my needs, or just have this in front of you whenever you're talking to me. That would be great. I'd like you to know who I am and what I need, because this is going to be important to me. So let me give you some examples, some other needs. I'm going to take my time with the needs, and I'm going to tell you what to do when your need gets violated in a little bit here. There's another clue on the card that can help you with that, okay? But so another need, let's see, what's another one that I think I want to look at? Let's see. I want to look at empathy because I believe that is in Natalie's top 5. So empathy. So the need for empathy is the freedom to laugh, cry, and vent. It's pretty simple, right? Empathy needs that, right? That was like, yes. And you right, Natalie?
Laugh and cry. Don't stop me from that, or I'm out of here, right? I'm done.
Right? Exactly. So if you imagine this. Imagine if you're with someone and they say, stop being such a baby. You know, you need to suck it up, buttercup, and we need to get going. That doesn't make you be like, oh, you're right. I totally do need to suck it up. Right? No empathy is going to think that.
No. I just cry more because they're telling me to stop, right? It's
right?
not going to work.
Nope. Andy's like, where was this card when we first got married? Dang it.
Exactly.
So this kind of concept here is not that they need to see. If you don't have empathy, you might not understand it. You might think, well, that's a weird need. You need to laugh, cry, and vent. How's that even a talent? It's basically empathy experiences the full emotions of what we're doing. I have empathy in my bottom 5. And one of the things that I've learned is that I don't even know how I feel. Really, I know it's funny, but it's true. It'll be like a week after something's happened, and my wife will be like, why are you so angry? And I'll be like, that's what it is. I'm angry. I didn't even know. Or sometimes I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know. It just doesn't feel right, but I don't know why. It's because I can't even understand it takes me time to figure it out. And when someone has empathy around you, they can help you figure it out. They can understand. And sometimes people cry and they're like, I don't know why I'm crying. But an empathy can help you through that. So being able to understand what we're feeling is a powerful talent, because once you can name something, you have power over it. That's what I'm talking about with these strengths. The power of being able to know what your strengths are is you've named them. You've given them a name. And now they've been running your life, and now you have power to take control of your talents and be intentional with them. So another need is, let's look at includer. The includers need room for everyone. They want to make sure there's room for everyone. They want to make sure there's enough seats for everyone. They want to make sure that everyone's being involved. If they see someone being left out, they feel this thing that's just overwhelming to them, and all they can think about is going and including that person. They can't think about what you're telling them. They're not paying attention to the meeting anymore. All they can think about is that person's not being included. And so once you can fulfill that need, this energy is unleashed. That's the thing about the needs. When you honor them, energy is unleashed. When Natalie cries, all of a sudden she starts speaking with wisdom. Have you ever heard her do that? Like, some of the wisest things she said is when tears are on her cheeks, or when she's laughing with you, right? And when someone has includer, some of the most wise things they've said is when everyone's included and now they feel whole and energized. My woo is at its best when I can see all of you. I am terrible at Facebook Lives because all I can see is my own stinking face. And I'm a perfectionist, and I'm like, ah, crap, look at my hair today. But if I can stare at all of you, my woo starts going like, ooh, I'm winning people over. I saw that person laugh. You know, and I'm like, yes, I got Carrie McCoy's on my team now. You know, I can see her laughing at this. And I got Brian now. He's laughing. So all of a sudden, I'm better. And my woo's need is, what is the need of woo? I better be reminded of that. The need for social variability. Ooh. I do need that. I need to meet a lot of new people all the time. And I need to know, like, if I'm, there's just something about me that needs to bounce around and meet a lot of new people. And I just love it. And it fulfills my needs in great ways. The other thing, so with these needs, for you to be aware, it's not about pampering anybody or babying them. It's about empowerment. That's what it is. When you can fulfill someone's needs, you're empowering them to be at their best. You're honoring it. And there's some of your themes that you might recognize that if you violate the need of that one theme, it's all right, fine, you can move on. But there are some of your themes that will shut down everything else. For me, I realized that's belief. I have the talent theme of belief in my top 5. So belief is this talent of having certain core values that are unchanging. And out of these values emerge a defined purpose for my life. So I'm passionate, I'm uncompromising about my core values. I make sacrifices for things that are important. I bring values, stability, clarity, and conviction. A lot of my passion comes from it. I'm altruistic. I'm not allowed to watch infomercials because of that. Because I'm like, Melinda, do you know how many songs are on that CD set? It's amazing. Or this thing can chop cement. Or we could have so much more room in our closets if we could vacuum pack this. Turn it off, Jeremy. I'm altruistic and I'm like, but it could work. I love it. But if someone violates my need, which is a cause or purpose for which to live, if I'm doing something that's going against my cause, against my mission, I literally shut down and my ideation has no more ideas. And my woo doesn't care if you like me anymore. And my learner doesn't want to learn anything anymore. And I've learned about myself, there are some needs that if they get violated, nothing works anymore. I'm completely shut down now. Or if I violate it myself, if I lie to somebody, or if I realize I wasn't completely honest and I was like, oh crap, I'll go back and then I'll do like unproductive behavior, like explain way too much and apologize way too much. And it's just not good to violate my belief need, I've learned. And so I think that's important for you to understand yourselves. But imagine if you're sitting down with somebody brand new on your team and you have them write out these needs. And they all of a sudden learn more about themselves, about how they need to be honored. And they start sharing this with a lot of people. Then it's more than just having achiever or activator or deliberative or learner. It's about understanding what I need in life, what I need from partnerships. So that's the need. The need of the talent theme, I think, is probably the most important thing on this card. But what do you do if you have your need violated? Well, the problem is if you wait around for someone to fix it for you, you're just playing the victim, right? Let's say someone violated my belief need. And then I'm like, oh, you shut me down. Now I can't do anything. Now my doTERRA business is going to be bad and it's not going to go well. And I'm not going to teach this class good because I'm letting other people control my life now. That doesn't make sense, right? I think it's important to see how other people influence you and how you influence your own life. But you've got to be able to also take control of the situation when your need has been violated. And so one of the things that I always like to have people do is on one side of the column, they've got their 10 needs. On the other side, they've got the correlating sentence about your contribution. And so, for example, and this is on here as well, it says, I bring, in parentheses, it's got contribution. For achiever, I bring intensity and stamina of effort. So if my need, my freedom to work at my own pace is violated, if someone just tells me, hey, just get this done, like by today, and that's not my pace, I can be very frustrated. I can be very resentful. But the way I get out of that is I get to work. And all of a sudden, if I can make a contribution with that theme, I'm better. When I'm frustrated with a relationship, if I can serve that person and I can work hard for them, I feel better about the relationship. My achiever, if I can make a contribution with my talent, all of a sudden, that need being violated, I can overcome. So let's just say, like doing the dishes makes me love my wife more. It doesn't necessarily make her love me more. I've learned that it makes me love her more. And unfortunately, she's just over there and heard that. That was supposed to be a secret. Dang it. And we recorded this too. So, but this is something where you need to learn how you can make a contribution with your theme to climb out of your funk. And serving others with your theme is the way to do it. So some other contributions. So let's see. The need of discipline is to have a structured and organized environment. Well, that might not always happen for you, especially when you hit summer and all the schedules change for your kids. And so what you bring is precision and detail orientation. And so maybe you can map out your summer in a detailed format and make sure that you guys get on a schedule. And all of a sudden, that'll bring your discipline back to life and make summer fun for everybody. Let's see. Another one is focus. The need for focus is to have a goal to establish priorities. How can you focus if you don't have anything to focus on, right? Well, if that gets violated, what you bring is clarity through concentration and direction. So bring direction, bring clarity. Stop the whole process and say, hey, can we figure out where we're going? Can I provide some direction here? And all of a sudden your focus will come back to life. Do you see that? So I like to have on my piece of paper my 10 needs listed in order according to my top 10 talent themes. And then next to that, my top 10 contributions so that I know what to do if my need gets violated and I don't have to play the victim and I can take control of my talent and I can be the one in charge and I can serve the world with who I am. You know, a lot of people raise their kids to say, hey, I want you to find your passion. I want you to find what you love to do. I think a better thing might be to say, I want you to find your unique contribution. And I want you to find a way to make that for the rest of your life. And just do that every day. And you'll find passion naturally if you do that. I think it's different. I think it's almost like trying to tell someone to go be happy, or you could tell them what they need to do to be happy. You don't just go to be happy. You do the right things that create happiness. It's the same thing here. You don't just go find passion. You do things that create passion. And if you make your unique contribution to the world, you'll create a passion that not only does something, because we can be passionate about singing in the shower, right? Or passionate about video games. That doesn't mean we should be the next video game blogger, right? So I think we need to see what's the contribution we can make. And then those other things will come into place. That's just 2 things of like 10 things on this card that you can use to coach your team. How powerful is that, right? That's awesome, right? So any questions so far before I keep going?
That's so powerful, Jeremy. So awesome.
There was a question brought up that I thought was very interesting, that is there any type of, if you have like what they call artificial, or maybe that was you were raised with, that can come through that maybe is not part of really who you are, but it's because of who you've been raised to be? Is that something that is, it's just like from Kylene, it's written in here, can a life wound cause an artificial strength?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Thanks for asking that. What you're basically asking is this nature or nurture, right? Was I born with it, or did it get shaped in me? Was there some event or something some parenting style my parents had that created this thing, right? Did I rephrase?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's probably one of the most common questions I get when I'm doing training. So thank you for asking that, Cheryl. That's great. It shows that you're a smart person and you're thinking about this. So I appreciate you being thoughtful there.
I'm sorry, but I can't accept that. That was my daughter.
Nope, just say thank you. Smart. You can do it. All right. So, all right. I want to talk about what you just did there a little bit too, but I want to talk about and answer your question. So, as I talked about, and I talked about it on purpose, what we think we're measuring are physical pathways in your brain that have been created through that pruning process. We think that you've gotten to a point now where your brain physically has some neural pathways that are at the synaptic connections at your dendrites in your brain, and they're just flowing all over the place. And we think we're actually measuring those specific things. And therefore, those don't change. Brain psychologists show that after a while, what you end up doing more often than creating new superhighways is creating branches on the trees, on the trunks that have already been grown. And so you do grow and develop. It's not that you don't stop changing or anything like that. They have found that if there is a physical trauma to the brain, then you may see a complete change in personality. So if you had a brain injury or you were in something like that, we can see some. I mean, I was just watching Stranger Things 2, and I noticed that it had this, that they're talking about Phineas Cage, which I remember learning about in school. He had that bar that went through his head. It was just like this. And they said after that, he was just like mean, and he wasn't the same person anymore because it had gone through his frontal lobe and he had survived. So yes, can it change? The other part of it that I said, and I said this on purpose, is that God didn't create this, Gallup did. It's not divine revelation, but I think it's still, for a lot of people, I think they think of it as revelation. But at the same time, I want you to realize that it's not perfect, and there are times where you can take it and you'll see some things change. Normally what's happening, though, is your top 10 are just shuffling around. That's all that's happening. And if it gives you any confidence, at Gallup, on our front doors to our offices, we have our top 10 listed, not our top 5. If it shows you how Gallup feels about the top 5 versus the rest, we think your top 10 are fairly dominant, and we think it's a more holistic version of who you are. So if that helps at all. And I had a guy one time, I was teaching a class at a call center in, I think it was Arkansas. It was my first time to the South, and this guy said that he had harmony because he was raised in the South. And I was like, that's an interesting theory. And I said, well, we're in the South, so let's test your theory. I said, raise your hand if you have harmony in your top 5. And there was 30 other people there, and he was the only one with harmony in his top 5. And I said, theory debunked, my friend. This is in you. This is something that's natural to you. Now, think about it this way. At the age of 3, those synaptic connections are being made and being kept. And they're kept if they're touched, if they're stimulated. They're not kept if they're not stimulated. Therefore, can you develop certain talents in certain environments that were already naturally an inclination for you, that were ready to develop, and because you were nurtured, they developed into something? Or can you be in a situation where you weren't even touched as a child, and we have research that shows that when you don't touch a child, they don't fully develop, and they have problems for the rest of their life. So your nurture does make a difference, and research shows it makes a difference in your personality and everything else. But it's usually still based on this range of natural proclivity that you already had to develop. You won't develop something you could have never had, right? So all those other people didn't have harmony because it just wasn't there for them. But did being raised in the South and certain culture and with certain parents help those themes develop in certain ways? Yeah. But so I think it's a combination of both. And I think you can have some life-changing thing happen that can shape and change who you are. And just go take the assessment again and see if it's true. So hopefully that helps answer your question. The other thing I want to speak to is you kind of had a hard time accepting that compliment. And I just want to say that that's because we live in a weakness-based society. And in some ways, we also don't want to be seen as egotistical. And so we actually inadvertently become self-centered. You see how when you did that, you made that about yourself? And you're like, oh no, I can't accept that. And really, you could have made it about me and been like, oh, thank you so much, and made me feel good for giving you a compliment. But you made it about yourself instead, right? And so it's actually being self-centered to not be grateful for what you've been given, for the gifts that you have. And so we should be counting our blessings. And one way to count our blessings and to make those blessings count is to actually use our talents, to invest in them, to be grateful for them, to accept them, to claim them, to aim them at things that we need to be doing, and to help people know who we are. And it's not egotistical. You're not denying the good luck you got, the blessings you received, the other people who helped you, but you're honoring the role that you played, that you were only able to play because of the blessings that you've been given, the talents you've been given. So be grateful when someone says you're smart. God gave you those smarts. Don't deny what he gave you. Don't deny the gifts you've been given. Don't not count your blessings in that moment. Be grateful for them and be like, thank you. You don't have to be like, yes, want to know something else about me? I'm also really good at ping pong. It's awesome, like ping pong master, 2 paddles in the same hand. Right? You don't have to be like that, but you can be like, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you thought to say that. And you can compliment them back, right? Like, it's just, those are things. So I'm saying that to you because we all do it. And I want us all to realize that telling people your talents is not egotistical. It's being grateful and making your blessings count by counting your blessings. All right.
Thank you.
Off soapbox, sitting down.
That was good. Oh, very enlightening. Very enlightening.
You're welcome. All right. So, So we've covered just a little bit of these cards. Is this still okay for you guys? Is this all right, this training so far? Okay. So I just want to say hi to Jason because I see him and I know Jason. How's it going, buddy? Good to see you.
Good, how are you?
All right. And hey, Christine Hales, good to see you too. Just saying hi to people. All right. So the other thing that's on life, I can't just run, right? There's an example of someone saying, hey, I see this happening in my relationships. So a few things to understand about this is that people do things because of who they are, not because of who you are. So don't take it personal. It's not about you. Don't be so self-centered, right? It's not about you. It's about them. And they're doing things because of who they are. And you're trying to interpret them with your talents. All right, I just didn't do it. I almost had an inside joke we have in our family that you wouldn't understand. I cut it out. All right. But this is something where I think it's important to understand other people's themes, other people's motivations, so you start to interpret their actions in the right way. But I think it's important for you to understand your values. You could also do an activity for someone. Many of you have probably done values activities. You could list out, what are my top 10 things I love? What are the top 10 things I hate? And have that conversation with your team and just be really transparent and be like, look how I've been misinterpreting things. And all of a sudden they're like, oh, like right now, Brian's like, that's what's been going on. I knew it. Oh, right? And so I think it can unlock relationships. It can allow you to restart relationships. And so, Andy, I know you just asked, am I okay going till noon your time? Yeah, I'm okay with that. So we can go longer. I thought it was only an hour, but it's fine for me to go. If it's okay, I just need to let someone know that I need to do that, if that's all right. It'll only take a second.
You're great. You're great.
And we have some guests who are going to come on, like Jerry Jacobs, and talk a little bit about what he has done with his team and how they've brought the strengths culture alive for them and their team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, you want to do that now?
Yeah, let's bring in, Jen Garrett is on the call, and Jeremy, you had a chance to shed some light on some of Jen's strengths, and we just wanted Jen to share a little bit of where she has gone with that and how that has Bless her. I love it when I can't see it when I'm looking for that person all of a sudden.
Looks like Jerry's on too.
Yeah, I can't see Jim, but maybe I don't see everybody who's on the call at the same time. Oh wait, yeah, there's 4
I
pages.
saw Jen hop off just a minute ago, Natalie.
Okay. Maybe Rox and James are on the 808.
Oh. Okay.
So we'll listen. We'll have Rox and James share a little bit of what strengths have done for them just for a minute, so you can start seeing some of the application of what Jeremy's talking about. We gotcha. You're unmuted. Hi,
Yeah,
James
let's see.
Ivey, Presidential Diamond, Rockstar. How has strengths?
Oh, were we supposed to be listening? I was just on the call because I thought I was supposed to be on the call. Because, I just checked off my thing on my list that I got on the call. Just kidding. Achiever is not part of my top 5 or top 10. But what I will say is that this is something that I hope and I believe will infiltrate all of doTERRA at all different levels on all different teams, whatever, because I really feel like it, as Natalie always loves, I really feel like it helps to provide clarity. And clarity is really what helps us create vision. And vision is what drives our activity, our purposes, and gives us that feeling of being contributing, of being fulfilled, and that sort of thing. At all different levels and all different types, even though you may not be considered a visioneer or whatever, your ability to visualize and see and connect with something comes out of the more of clarity that you can get in life. And to me, when we take this and we focus on what's right with us, which I love when Jeremy always talks about that, what's right with us, because our society is so much focused on the other side of things, that now it really gives us this kind of, just like when you go to start the race and you want to dig your foot in to feel the traction to help you jump off the block and go, it provides that, it gives that. So to me, it's exciting to have people look with clarity at who they are. And even though I think everybody has a sense that they're somebody, that they're unique. What they don't often have the opportunity is to understand what that means, how they're unique, and what they get to do with that, and how they get to do something that nobody else on the planet can do if they choose. And I think, again, with this clarity, with this understanding, it helps them get up off of the couch, the whatever, right? And to feel like they should do and they can do, and that when they do, that just sounded like do-do. Just kidding. When they do end up doing something, that it's different from what anybody else can contribute, and yet it's not better than anybody else. It's just that they need to play a role as much as anybody else does. So if my thing, we brought our front line in and we did this with Jeremy. Not everybody's going to have that opportunity, but I really believe that if you'll get the book, if you'll take the Strengths Finder, if you'll get the cards, if you'll study it out and use everything that's available to do it, and hopefully this got recorded and can be thrown out into the doTERRA team universe. If people will study it, if they will work on it, that it will allow them to be a coach instead of a boss. It will allow them to help unlock what's within themselves better and within their teams. And when I saw what it started with our frontline leaders and people who were invited into our home with Jeremy, it was magical to me, magical. And yes, the environment was fun and comfortable and everything of that added, but the main thing is it was magical because people, it's like watching light bulbs kind of form over people's heads. It was like watching doors that have been locked opened, and blocks become something that you can go through, under, around, whatever, and now see life with new vision and see how things can be instead of how they can't be.
Mm-hmm.
So I could talk forever. I can't say enough. And Roxanne's in the back of the car here, and you know, I may want to add a piece into that. Hold on.
Is this all coming through loud and clear, by the way?
That's so,
Hello?
James, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Can you hear Roxanne?
We heard a touch, but not very loud. Say it again, Rox.
Oh, I just moved it to a different route. Is that better?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. So just really quickly, I know that as far as doTERRA goes, and those of you who've maybe been in doTERRA for a significant period of time or even just recently, one of the things that can make you really ineffective as a leader and as a coach for others is when your life is not good. So if your marriage is having problems, or your relationships with your kids, or some of those things are falling apart, it's extremely difficult to be what you need to be in order to lift others and serve others, right? Like if that's not taken care of, it's super tricky. So I have loved the Strength Finder for that, for myself, that figuring out, like Jeremy said, why am I shutting down? What's causing this in myself, instead of being like, oh, I'm such a loser, right? Like, unfortunately, sometimes when we're not operating 100%, we kind of like automatically go to the loser space. I'm a loser. Why can't I just get my butt, off the, why am I feeling this way? And so to me, this is such a great tool to give us that detective sense and figure out, oh, the reason I am totally feeling this way is because my discipline, which I happen to have in my top 5, is being violated again and again and again. And it doesn't mean that I can totally fix everything in my life so that that doesn't get violated, but that understanding is like, oh, I am not a loser. This is just happens to be something for me that's up for me, right? And I get to figure out, okay, how can I calm that part of me down, and still function every day. So, that's just an example. Like, have a new baby, 6 months old, right? So for me, the discipline strength says that if my life is in order, and whatever that looks like is how I basically am feeling, good or bad, right? If things aren't, so that is like puts you in a tailspin, right? So you have to go, oh, how does this apply to me? And then for me, that's helped to look at that, and then now look at my leaders from there. But honestly, if I go straight to them, like, I haven't learned how to do it with myself. So the first place, just like we always teach people, use the oils first, then go share them, right? Same thing. Like James said, really, really key that you kind of delve into your own strengths and figure out maybe where things, like Jeremy said, write down your contributions and then what you really need. And if that's not happening, and we're not saying, hey, divorce your spouse and leave your family because, they're violating all your, all your needs right now. But what we're saying is look through that list and figure out, oh, that makes sense to me. I see how that's working. And then find some ways that, you can be able to function better because you're seeing your strengths, and how to fuel yourself and get that energy that's going to come from focusing on those as the first two, having the violation scenario. So hopefully that helps. And take it away, Nat.
Wow, Rox. Thank you. So important, right? That we get this ourselves, and then we can pass it on to our and our culture.
Yeah, I just want to point out something that Roxanne said there that I think is really important, and I tried to talk about it before, is not to become a victim. Mm-hmm. That just because a need gets violated doesn't mean that now you should get out of that relationship. Because guess what? The next relationship is going to violate your needs as well. We're not perfect people. We just all do it all the time, right? That's not what it's about. It's about taking control of who you are. I try to remind people that these strengths are not excuses for poor behavior. They're not excuses for quitting. They're not excuses for failure. You know, I heard someone once say, well, I have relator, so that means I'm really good one-on-one, so I'm not going to teach any more classes. I was like, oh, well, that's going to go really slowly. And I said, one of the things you need to realize is it's not about, well, what activities are good for my relator. It's how can I use my relator to do any of the key activities? So how can I use my relator to teach classes? How can I use my relator to get people individually there, to make people feel special individually there? You know, how can I use my relator to get individuals on LRP afterwards? So it's more about how can I use who I am to do the business, not to avoid the business or to avoid relationships.
This doesn't mean we start eliminating one of the pipes because of our strengths, right?
Right? Yeah.
Bring our strengths to the pipes and we lay it all out there. We do the work. I love that.
It kind of redefines the concept of duplication in some form. You know, when I first joined doTERRA, I was a little bit disturbed by how people talked about duplication. And hopefully I'm not hurting anybody's feelings, but I started listening to people saying, oh, well, don't be too special in a class because then people will think they can't do it. Or don't act like you know too much. Or don't throw that retreat with your house because not everybody has a house like that. Or, you know, you need to be mediocre so people can duplicate you. And I was like, this is crazy town. This is not how you get to success. We do not act like mediocre, like failures so that everyone can be like mediocrity. Like this, no. And so instead, it's about creating an environment of realizing we can all be superstars, and that doesn't mean everybody needs to be like us. You know, I hear like, oh, well, she's beautiful and blonde and on the stage, and so I can't be. Get over yourself. You don't have to be like them. You need to be more of you. And they're allowed to be superstars without having to worry about you thinking you have to be like them. But we need to create that culture so people feel comfortable with that, so that it's not evil to be blonde and beautiful, and it's not terrible to be anything else, right? I'm messed up if I'm not blonde or beautiful. So I really need to realize that it's about being more of me. And if I'm the easiest person to duplicate, not someone else. And if I just study my own successes and see how I've done it before, I can do that again and again and again. And if we look at this outcome, there are so many different paths to get there, not just one. And we all need to reach these outcomes. The way I like it, Laura Jacobs says this beautifully. She talks about we're all baking a cake. We all have ingredients that everybody has to put in. Flour, sugar, unless you don't want sugar. But you know, there's everyone has essential things. If you don't put in there, you will not have a cake. But are there ways to frost it, to make it your own, right? All those baking shows, those cake shows are not about how people made the cakes as much as they're about how they decorated them. And that's how you do it with who you are. You still all need to teach classes. You still all need to find builders. But how you do it doesn't have to be the same at all.
Absolutely. That was the baking a cake brilliance of Quinn Curtis.
Oh, was it Quinn? Great.
Blessed
Sorry.
us all in this process. So awesome. What happens when we bake our own cake, right?
I love Quinn too.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Quinn at Kelly King Anderson did an event for teens, and I spoke to over 100 teenagers, and Quinn came up with her kid, and we coached her child right in front of her. It was awesome.
She said it rocked his world. Thank you for that, Jeremy.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Awesome.
All right. So, do we want Jerry to speak at all about how they're doing things?
Yeah. Let me just make sure that he's unmuted.
I did unmute myself. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Oh, perfect.
we gotcha.
Welcome, Jerry. So, just in case you don't know the Jacobs, these guys are double diamonds. They are incredible, brilliant souls who are some of the greatest innovators in doTERRA. And when we decided to bring on strengths, they decided to take it to the nth degree. And so they have run with this. Jerry, do you want to just speak to some of why you saw the value in using StrengthsFinder and in how you brought that culture to your team?
Well, in the beginning of doTERRA, I think that's where it kind of started for me personally, because I had just taken the StrengthsFinders test in the job that I had. And I brought that to Laura and Andy and Natalie. Remember, we took the test together. And the first thing,
to us 5 years ago.
well, it was actually more like 9 years ago. I mean, it was in the very beginning, long time ago.
Wow.
And my thought was everybody in doTERRA should take this test. And the reason why I felt that way, and the way it's more cemented in my mind, is recently having Jeremy come and teach our frontline team. And we haven't done it just once. We've done it 3 or 4 times. And I actually, because I was so interested, I wanted to go learn to be a coach myself. And so I went and took the training. And while I was at the training, and I'm not saying everybody has to do this at all, because I think you can learn it as a leader on your own. But for me, it was because I was so excited about it, because living in my strengths, I get it. It's a goal that I've had. And being in that training, I actually had the opportunity to really understand who I was on such a deep level. And so because of Jeremy and our team, and watching our team, like the lights go on, like James said, it's like an aha. Once you understand who you are, you can do almost anything. And knowing that you're living in a strengths mindset is what really is the catalyst for success. Let me just take an example from a personal example that I had after taking, being in the training, is I was able to understand my top 5 strengths so intently that I was able to see how they work together, and how it isn't just one strength at the top. Well, because I have connectedness, I understood the connectivity of my top 5 strengths and how powerful they were. And being able to understand, I kind of got the fact that I had consistency in my life, and intellection. Those are my 2 and 3. And I do think things through a lot. And then developers next, how I try to help other people to become, the best that they can be. And then I have adaptability. How is adaptability and consistency in my top 5? How does that work together? It's opposite. But the way I look at it is, if I think through things clearly and there needs to be an adjustment, I allow that adaptability to come in and make it better. So it was just fascinating to watch how all of those 5 strengths work intertwined to make up me and who I am. So I think what I would like to say to everybody on the call is really dive deep into your top 10, like Jeremy says. Understand how they work together, because the top, maybe connectedness, maybe I didn't understand it. That's just who I am. That is the innate part of me that maybe I didn't understand without seeing how they all connect together. So for me, the Strength Finder, yes, everybody in doTERRA should know their strengths, because then you know who you are. And then you go out and help other people understand who they are. Because, it took a while for Strengths Finders to come back to us. And I think it came back to us in a time when everybody was having a little bit of difficulty. We were a little stuck, and then people, so I think it's kind of interesting how it came back stronger the second time, when everybody needed something to help them grow and develop to be who they are more, because I think they were struggling in their businesses. And, so being aware of who you are on a deep level is where this really takes us, so that we can also pass it down to our leaders also, and so that we all can understand who we are first, like Roxanne, or like Jeremy just said, so that then we can empower others to understand themselves on a deep level. So I think it's deep. And I think it's, if we understand who we are from that level, how much more successful are we going to be in a strengths environment where we can, the exponentiation of everything is just going to grow and develop. And then we can disrupt healthcare on an individual level. And so it's so important that we understand ourselves, take it to a deep level so that we can pass this on so that we can all be successful.
Awesome.
That's awesome. It is awesome.
It is. And I
So-
love how you guys have done it. You know, you when you did your annual gathering, you brought strength into it. You're talking about your main leader strengths and you're helping them understand each other. I mean, some of those gatherings that you've done just facilitated, I believe you can facilitate with these cards, right?
And you could, the cards, you can use them together in a group setting. You know, Jeremy, while it's so incredible to have him there to teach us, we have to integrate it into our own understanding. And so having those tools with us as we're teaching together, and as you're on, you know, when you're mentoring the people in your downline, having those cards right there with you while you're on the phone with them, you learn it as you go. And you become, you know, a lot better at understanding the strengths, not with, you know, within your downline, but also yourself. You know, unfortunately, we can't have Jeremy all the time. And so let's take what he's taught us and run with it.
Yep,
Totally.
absolutely. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Jerry. Perfect.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And thank you, Jeremy and Andy and Natalie, for all that you've done for us and teaching us to, you know, to live in our strengths. It's incredible.
You guys have modeled it. You
Totally
bring the
incredible.
goodness in the beginning. It's so fun to see how it's rippled out. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. That was awesome. I love the Jacobs. I'm so glad they're my upline. I'm on their 6th level. Not at 7th level. So, you know, I'd have been a great frontline builder, Andy. Anyway. Teasing. All right. So I want to point out a couple things that you guys talked about that I think are important. One thing that Jerry talked about was finding and even I saw someone mentioned it. I think Christine Hales mentioned it about finding balance between your top 5 themes. You know, just because you have these doesn't mean that you need to use it in every single moment of your life. Right? And so if it's all right, I'll just give like a personal example. So to kind of help you understand this, I, with Gallup, had this contract when I was first new at Gallup. I was like only been with Gallup for maybe a year. It was my first big contract that I had developed with this Fortune 500 company, $7 million contract. And the CHRO, that's the chief HR officer, called me and said, hey, we're going to need you to meet with the procurement guy. He's new, the CFO is new, and he wants you to do this. Procurement is the part of a company that manages contracts. And I said, you said I didn't have to, but okay. And I sat down with this guy, and he proceeded to tell me how I needed to cut 20% of my prices, but not cut 20% of the work. I just basically was overcharging them for some reason, and I just needed to cut down the contract price. And I was sitting there, and I thought, my world is falling apart. I'm going to get fired. I don't know how these things work, and this is going terribly. And all of a sudden, this guy is telling me I need to lower prices for no good reason. And I was like, well, I can't do that. Don't solve it with me now. There's the finish line. We all see it. We all want to get together. We all want to cross it. I was like, I hate this guy. I hate him. And after about an hour, the meeting ends, and I walk out just like, I look like my girlfriend just broke up with me, and I can't hear anything anyone's saying, and like a high school kid. I'm like, oh, what just happened to me? And I call up one of my colleagues. His name's Kevin, and he knows my strengths. And I said, Kevin, this is just what happened. I'm going to get fired. I've ruined everything somehow. And he's like, listen, rookie, let me tell you a little bit about how this works. When do you meet with the HR officer? And I said, in an hour, we're going to have lunch together. He's like, I know how this usually goes for you. You have woo. You're going to go meet with them, and you're going to be like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you. That was it, you know, joke here, ha ha ha, you know, and all those things. He's like, you cannot do that. He's like, in this moment, you are a Vulcan. If you don't know who that is, Spock from Star Trek. You don't have emotions. You're going to go in there and you are going to use your learner to ask good questions, and you're going to use your belief to be courageous. I was like, all right, I'll do it. So I went in there and I sat down and he's like, hey, how's it going, Jeremy? I was like, not good. Took everything inside of me to just like, not good. And he was so surprised, like, what? What's going on? And I said, well, I just met you with your procurement guy and I have a question for you. Is this a value issue or a budget issue? And I said, oh yeah, Tom and I, the CEO, this is a budget issue. We understand the value. I said, that's funny because the procurement guy, this is a value issue for him. He says, I'm overcharging you. And I'm sorry, but we give you the lowest rates that we promise to the government. And if I lower them, I violate government contracts. So we're going to have to start this whole thing over, have another 100 meetings, and get started over because this isn't going to work. And the panic on his face, because I knew he'd promised the board he was going to sign it, was like, hey, this guy's new. He doesn't get to mess up our contract. And right there, I knew I won. And we signed the contract. The CEO called me the next day and apologized to me. We signed the contract and we didn't cut one thing. But that's because I realized my woo was not the talent to lean on in that moment. You know, so I also realized when I'm at a funeral, being all wooey and jumping all over the place is probably not the time to be using my woo, right? So there's just times to use these talents and times not to. And you got more than one. And you'll probably see that you lean on one more than the others. Your goal is to start to become more balanced. Use all your talents. Realize you have all of them at your discretion to leverage. So I think that was really important. And then I also want to talk about, like Jerry brought up, you know, it's great to have me there. My goal is not to be the next great coach. And there have been some great coaches that people have loved, like Tiffany Peterson. She's helped a lot of people. I know that's not my goal. I don't want to be that. I don't have time for that. I have my own goals. I want to be a presidential diamond too, all right? And so instead, I want to create a movement. I want to empower all of you to realize that you're enough. You're enough to coach your team. And the secrets are inside you. There's not some magical secret that's outside of you to figure this out. It's in you. And you're not some empty vessel that I magnanimously bestow upon you great knowledge and fill you up. You're full of it. No, that's not the right way to say it. You're full of insight and strength and talent. And that is so important, but it's painful sometimes to pull it out because you're so not used to being asked to think about what you've done right or where you've succeeded. And so I think it's important to just recognize that that's not always going to come naturally and easily for people. But that you don't need me. Now, I am going to be working with doTERRA to create systems and videos and things that you can go and you can listen to and watch and help you. So you're not just thrown to figure this out by yourself because you won't be able to do that. You need help. So we'll be working on providing you a lot of help. But I know you can do this. You're all capable of this and you have it in you. So, and I just want to also speak to a couple other questions that people asked. The other thing, by the way, I'm so glad that Callie Wilson said wonderful. I've been wanting to meet Callie Wilson for a while. I look up to her. She's awesome. Hello, Callie. All right. So I also want to point out, someone asked about what about for kids? And I realized when I answered them on the chat, it went to them privately and not to everybody. So if you have kids who want to take this, we do have an assessment for 10 to 14-year-olds called Strengths Explorer. And it comes with a parent discussion guide so that when they take it, you can talk to them about their themes and discuss it with them. We also have a book called Strengths-Based Parenting that you can get on Gallup.com or on Amazon, and you can order the book. And it has a code for you, a code for 10 to 14-year-olds, but it also has a chapter called Strength Spotting, where you can, it basically teaches you a perceiver model where you can perceive the talents in young children. And you can identify what they're good at and what they're not, mostly what they're good at. And if you do a multi-perceiver model, meaning you have a teacher, like a preschool teacher, look at what they're doing, and you look at what you're doing, you see what overlaps, you might start getting into real clues in what really are talents and not just your parental bias where that you think they're good at everything and they're the cutest thing ever, which they are, okay? All right, and then I think someone else asked me, let's see. There's one other one that I wanted to add. Oh, yes, they are called the theme insight cards, Asti, just so you know. And so I think I've answered all the questions. Sorry if I haven't. Oh, one other person said, when I was talking about, your needs are being violated and all those kind of things, and there was a question, I think, from Jen or Jenny, I can't remember, about, so how can you be something you're not? You should never try to be something you're not. I mean, there are cheers and chores to every job, right? And we always will have to do things that we're not good at a little bit here and there. But if you can distort your time throughout the day so you can spend more and more of it using your strengths, you'll be more energized. You'll find that your productivity improves, and it'll be super powerful. So I think it's just important for you to realize you don't have to be something you're not. You can educate people on who you are. You can learn how your talent impacts others. For example, my ideation, it impacts my wife's input because her input needs to gather all the information. She calls it hoarder. But it needs to know all the things, and then she can make sense of them and make a decision. Well, my ideation can flip out way more than what you need. I can give you 12 ideas on something in any minute, at any time. But if our deadline is tomorrow, the last thing she needs from me is a brainstorming session of 12 ideas that now has debilitated her. What she needs is the 1 to 2 ideas that are going to be helpful that we can choose between. I've learned the same with my kids. If I give them 5 restaurants we can go to, I'm dead in the water. I've really screwed up because we're going to get 5 different answers. Every restaurant will get a vote, and then I'm the enemy. I've learned I give them 2 answers that they get to choose between. And I've learned how to use my ideation to help other people be at their best with their strengths. And that's emotional intelligence, of learning how to use who you are to put others at their best. And that's not easy. And it takes emotional maturity. And it makes it realize that you can't just use these because you have them. You use them when they're right and when they can help people. And then Tony asked, how do we recognize our weakness and learn them? So if you get your full 34, by the way, the bottom 5 are not necessarily weaknesses. They're just places where we couldn't find a pattern. But they are definitely clues to something that you're never going to be good at. But it doesn't necessarily matter. And that's not how we define weakness at Gallup. We define weakness as anything that gets in the way of performance. I'll say that again. We define weakness as anything that gets in the way of performance. So let me ask you this. If my achiever starts trying to achieve and achieve and achieve, and I become a workaholic and I'm abandoning my family, is it getting in the way of my life and what I want? But it's my strength. Have you ever heard your greatest strengths can be your greatest weaknesses? A weakness is something that gets in the way of performance. It could be something dominant in you, or it could be something that you don't have and you're not able to do it. Like I don't have empathy very high. And so I didn't really understand that my wife didn't want me to cheer about her labor pains that were coming on the monitor because my child was coming and I was excited about being a dad, but I was being excited about her pain, right? Once I realized that, I was like, okay, I'll stop being excited about that. I'm sorry. Don't hate me. So Carrie, to receive all your strengths, you do not need to take the assessment a second time. You just go to the website and you can unlock them, and they'll make you just pay the difference between what you've already paid and the cost for the full 34. And that's on GallupStrengthsCenter.com. By the way, there's an app you can also download for your strengths that I think is important for you to know about, and I think can make this easier. It's the one in the middle with the G is what it looks like. And so when you download that app, you'll be able to look at your own top 5 and full 34 reports, whatever you purchased. You'll be able to click on it, and then it will expand, and then you can click learn more, and it will take you to your personalized definition for your top 5 and the standard definition. But then you can also go to, see on the bottom, there is just for one person, and then there's 2 people there. You can click on that, and you can share your strengths, and they can share them with you, so you can see your family and your team strengths on the app as well. So you don't have to memorize them, and then you have them right there, then and there. And you just need their email address, and you can share it with them and accept it in the app. How cool is that? So then you can manage your team's strengths, and anytime you get on the phone, you can just open your app and say, oh, look, I'm going to be talking to Stephen Hales. His number 1 is in election. I didn't have to remember that. So that's another tool that you guys can use as you're managing your team and in conversations with them around strengths. Another thing that I just would like to talk about that's super selfish real quick. I didn't even ask Natalie and Andy if I have permission to do this. But my wife is just finishing a book. She's published it. It's already ready for pre-order. It's called Anchor to Your Strengths. And the subtitle is Combining the Science of Who You Are with the Chemistry of Essential Oils. And so
awesome. So
yeah,
awesome.
right? So you can look up any talent theme, any of the 34 talent themes. My wife has an agreement with Gallup, so she used the full definitions of the strengths, and it will give you some oils that chemically align with that talent theme so that you can trigger your talent with essential oils, and it brings essential oils into the world of personal development. So for example, we've been talking a lot about achiever. If you have achiever, you have 3 different oils you can choose from to go through the anchoring process: arbor vitae, fennel, or wild orange. And they were chosen based on a number of different factors, on chemical research that has been done, the emotions section of the Essential Life book, the emotions and essential oil book, I forget the name of it, and she had PJ Hanks, who's written books about chemistry and essential oils, review it, and Laura Jacobs review it as well. So it's been vetted pretty well. And so I can use wild orange, and I can think about times where I've used my achiever and I've been super productive, and smell wild orange at the same time. And it's kind of like Pavlov's dogs, where he gave them the food and they'd salivate and he'd ring the bell at the same time. And then after a while, all he had to do was ring the bell and they would salivate. Well, we're the dogs in this analogy, and we can use wild orange to anchor to our achiever, and she teaches you how to do that in the book. And then when I use wild orange at any time, my achiever just turns on and I'm ready to run. How cool is that? And using essential oils in personal development.
That's awesome. And can you imagine, like, for those of you that are bringing your builders together at the end of the year or sending a Christmas gift? That would be so awesome. I haven't even thought of this. They could take those oils and anchor in.
So the website is the same name as the book, anchortoyourstrengths.com. Anchortoyourstrengths.com, and you can go there and you can order the book now. And it's only $12.95 for a book, so it's pretty inexpensive.
Awesome.
So there's that. That's my selfish plug. But by the way, it does have like blends in the back too. So like empathy plus positivity plus includer is 4 drops of frankincense and 3 drops of lime. And so it's got, and she's got different blends that you can put together. But she introduces strengths, introduces essential oils, introduces anchoring, and then you go through each one of the strengths. So it's
Thank
brilliant.
you, Linda. Woohoo.
So there's another tool that you can use to make this really unique and make it feel like this is for you and for your team in doTERRA and not just some assessment. The other thing I wanted to mention was this is different from a personality assessment, but it does capture personality, and this will be one of the things I'll cover on the card now. When you take a personality assessment, it's usually just judging who you are. Like, for example, you take it and you find out you're introverted. Well, do you become more introverted and develop that introversion and become the most introverted person ever? That doesn't even sound right? And so the problem with those is they have negative labels now, because we've become, actually, if you've ever read the book Quiet, The Power of Introverts, you'll realize that we discriminate against introverts. Think about it. What is more of a leadership personality, being extroverted or introverted? We think extroverted, but when you actually study great leaders, a lot of them were introverted, being thoughtful and cautious and managing risk appropriately rather than just being gregarious, right? So I think it's something where many of you have thought of yourselves as being introverted. This is more empowering to see that you have intellection, which means you don't like being, it's not about you don't like being with people. It's like you like being alone, and that's where you get energy. It's not about that you are indecisive. It's that you have input and you need to gather everything and make sense of it before you can make a decision. You know, so we realize that these talent themes give you power because they help you have more positive words that can then help you realize where you can develop into something and not just accept something about yourself. So I want to point out on the theme insight cards, there is this part called barrier labels. And each barrier label on here is about, like, for example, achievers, the barrier label is work is more important than people. These are things that people might wrongly interpret about you because they don't have your talents. Or there's, like I've said, these are neutral. There's such things as strengths-based crime sprees. You can do evil with these. You can hurt yourself and you can hurt others. And so these themes, you need to think about, how can this theme help me? And how can this theme hinder me? How can it help me progress? How can it get in my way? And be aware of that. And imagine that in a coaching call. You know, for example, the talent theme of responsibility. Responsibility is an amazing talent theme of someone who says they'll do what they said they would do. They keep their promises. They show up on time. They deliver excellence because they've taken ownership of it. They see their name on it. They see right and wrong ways to do things, and they want to do it the right way. But they also have a hard time with group activities. They often think, great, I'm going to be the one who does everything. And there's going to be some free riders. And they'll think, oh, man, why is that person cheating like that? I'm going to show them how not to cheat. And you might even be the person who drives in the fast lane at the speed limit to make sure everyone's driving the speed limit. Or I had one person with responsibility told me they saw someone cut through a gas station instead of going up to the light and making a right turn. They took the shortcut. And they followed them and waved them down and told them, you can't do that. And I was like, that's dangerous. Don't do that. So, but responsibility, often the reason they can't delegate is because they don't trust people to get it done. And so one of the things that I think are important is realizing that you've got to learn how to trust people. And the best way for you to learn how to trust people is to identify their strengths and see what can you trust them to do. When are they in their zone of genius? Maybe you can't trust them to do everything, but at least you can trust them to do their strengths and to be at their best, doing it their way. So learn that, and all of a sudden, instead of being stuck at diamond and not being able to get to blue diamond because you're not delegating and building the capabilities of your silver so they can grow, you all of a sudden realize you can let go. You can see where your people's genius are. And you can realize how you might have given them a negative barrier label with your responsibility talent thing because you didn't trust them. That's just one example of how this can be unlocked. And so, see if I want to say anything else about that. I think that's pretty good on that topic. There's so much, right? We have like 4.5-day trainings on strength. So there's always so much to talk about. And I try to think about the best things to talk about. The other thing that's on the theme insight card is it says I am, or the being, which is for achiever, it's hard worker. For activator, it's impatient with inactivity. For analytical, it's logical and objective in approach. For context, it's appreciative of my predecessors and prior events. But this is just kind of the personality side of the strength. Who are you? If people are wondering who they are, if you have a stay-at-home mom who's never done anything in their lives in their minds, even though they've done a ton, but they don't think they have, Sometimes they just need to know who they are. And that I am statement is powerful for them to just say, I'm a hard worker, just declarative, I'm a maximizer and I'm committed to excellence. Or I'm significant and I'm interested in being seen as significant so that I can accomplish something significant. So it's empowering to be able to give them these I am statements so that they can climb out of their self-pity party, or they can climb out of this environment they've built around them, where they've built relationships that just help them stay in this safe zone of not feeling special. The other part of there is I will, which is kind of in parentheses doing. And the I will is kind of like, what will that personality make you do? It's different than your unique contribution. Your contribution is how you're going to contribute to something bigger than yourself. But this is just like, you can take a look at what you just do. So achievers set the pace for production. Maximizers focus on what's strong and manage around what's weak. Deliberatives anticipate things that could go wrong. Belief makes sacrifices for things that are important. Arranger works effectively and efficiently through others. So you just kind of see what you do, and it can start to help them see, like, again, that stay-at-home mom, they can see, oh, I do that with the kids. And then you say, all I'm asking is for you to do the same thing you've been doing with your kids to build doTERRA. It's going to be amazing. You can do that. And now you're just duplicating yourself. So if you can help them identify when are they doing these things in their life already, and then help them move forward. The last thing, go ahead.
Just, Jeremy, I love how maybe something like that we could even bring to the table. Like, you've got a brand new builder that wants to come in, yet they're kind of tentative or doubting themselves on whether they can be successful. And if we can get good at identifying these things, if we understand the theme cards, even before they've taken strengths, we'll be able to see some of these things and highlight it and let them see how they could shine in doTERRA. And I think that can start affecting from the brand new person that desires to build all the way to our leaders that are stuck and they're trying to figure things out.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's a great case study or use case of how to use that in a certain scenario within the doTERRA business. All right. So I hope I've built the value of these theme insight cards. I don't get anything out of you going and buying these, all right? This is legitimately me telling you these will change your ability to coach your teams. And I want you to. So Andy, you just texted me and let me know to kind of talk about building what are practical ways to build a strengths culture with your team. So let me end by talking about some of those ideas.
You've done such an awesome job of building a team based on this, right? And yes. So many of us have already built teams, and here we are, and we want to shift things from being weakness-based, this weakness-based culture, to a strengths-based culture. What are your top insights on how to do that? Yeah. So first of all, I want to know people's strengths as soon as possible. The faster I know about your strengths, the better. So we do business opportunity classes where we walk through the build guide with a group of people and then have them kind of step in and say, yes, I want to build. And when they say yes, the first thing they do is take the Clifton Strengths Assessment. That's the first thing we have them do. Then we have them share their strengths with us on the app so that we can look at their strengths. And we schedule a call with them to walk through the theme insight cards for their top 5. And literally that's what I do. And I walk through it with them, and I have them write down their need and their contribution, and we talk all about it. The other thing that we do is at the beginning of every business mentoring relationship, we complete 4 questions with each other. And I call it mentoring with balance, because you're answering it and they're answering it. And so the 4 statements are, you get the best of me when ... And I finish that. So it might be, you get the best of me when I think you like me. See my woo comes out. And then they answer, you get the best of me when ... And they do that. Number 2 is you get the worst of me when.
See how I'm going to hear their strengths being violated? They're going to talk to me about when their strengths get violated when they answer this. And you're going to hear their needs and all of this. So I like them to be able to review their needs because it can help them answer these questions better. But you get the best of me when ... You get the worst of me when ... Then the next two questions are about expectations, which I think there's two main reasons why most relationships fail within doTERRA. One is you violated each other's strengths and people just don't feel safe with you anymore. Or two, there's a misalignment in what you expect of each other. And so these next two are to kind of get at that. It is one thing I expect of you is ... I'll say it again. One thing I expect of you is ... And so that might be one thing I expect of you is to try what I tell you to do, to just give it a try, to work hard, to tell. One thing I often say, because I have empathy low, is I'll say, one thing I expect of you is to tell me when things aren't going the way you want them to go, because I won't see it, and I need you to tell me. So don't just go dark on me. Tell me, hey, this isn't working for me, and I'll change it up. I promise. You can come to me anytime you're like, you hurt my feelings when you do this. I want to know, because I don't see it. I don't even know when people need to go to the bathroom when I'm facilitating a course. How am I going to see when your feelings are hurt? And so please help me know that. And they'll say, one thing I expect of you is to have my back, or to tell me what I need to do, because I don't know what I'm doing. And so it's this great moment there. Then the fourth thing you say is, you can count on me to ... You can count on me to ... So that might be, I say often, you can count on me to care more about you than you do about yourself. I won't let you hurt yourself. I'm going to have your back. And I'm not going to poo-poo your ideas when you come up with them. But if they're an idea that's not going to work, I'm going to say, that's great thinking. I love how you're going after that. Would you be okay if I just helped you think through a few other things and gave you some alternative ideas as well? For example, I had a brand new builder who said, I've decided for my first class, we're going to make essential oil-infused candles. And it's going to be amazing. And I've never been able to figure out how make and takes turn into stuff. I know there's others of you who have. And I'm like, okay, well, that might work. I'm excited for you. That's cool. Do you know how to do that? I don't know how to do that. They're like, yeah, I figured it out. I'm like, sweet. So let's totally plan that. Can I give you another idea? See how I totally honored their idea, but then I said, remember when I said I was going to care more about you than you do about yourself? For the first class, could we just try a natural solutions class? Just see how it goes. And just kind of focus on that. And she's like, okay. A month later, she's like, I'm so glad you did that, because that was really you helping me follow kind of the best practices of how people grow this. And it doesn't mean that some of you couldn't be successful with a candle. That's not the point. The example is that was a moment where I was able to call back to that conversation and say, I'm only giving you this because remember I promised that you can count on me to do this. And that way they took it the right way. All right. So I start out every relationship with that way. I know their strengths. We've talked about it with the theme insight cards, and we've had those 4 questions we've mentored with balance. The other thing I constantly do is study success. So when someone says, oh, I'm not able to get people on LRP, I'm just struggling with this. What most of people do in doTERRA is, well, let me tell you how to do that. Here's what you need to do. I totally got you. Let me tell you exactly what to do. I think that's a mistake. I think that's how you get people to duplicate your personality and duplicate your way of doing things. Instead, I say, have you ever gotten anybody on LRP? And they go, usually they're like, yeah, I've gotten a few people on it. Well, how'd you do that? You see what I'm doing? I'm studying their success now. Well, how'd you do that before? Well, I sat down with them one-on-one and I just walked them through what they needed to do and told them about it, and they just got on it. That's crazy. And so then I was like, well, could you do that again? Yeah, I guess I could do that again. All right, well, let's talk about when you could do it. And they're like, all right, let's try that with the next 5 people. See how they had the way to get it done with their strengths? So they might have said something completely different. They might have said, well, I then did an after class with everybody and got them all together on Zoom, and signed them all up on LRP, and we got on the accounts together and did it. Could you do that again? Like, I don't care how you did it, but if you've done this before, even if you failed 99% of the time, but you figured out the one, I want to focus on the one and help you do that again and again and again and again. Oh, I don't know how to close somebody. Well, have you done it before? That is like my knee-jerk response is, well, have you ever done it before? Like, even if they're a brand new builder, I've never taught a class. Well, have you taught anybody anything before? Well, yeah. Well, tell me about it. I want to hear how you do it before I start telling you my great, amazing ways. I want to know how you do this. So have you ever convinced anybody to buy anything before? Have you, I think it's just like, if you can find where they've been successful before, it's way better than you telling them how to do something. And then you can infuse into that. Okay, I like how you did that. If you just change this one thing now and do that all, you'll be amazing. You can still give them tips and things, but first find out their style and approach, and then you'll see how what you have to offer can fit into their way of doing things. So I try to do that. We also, when they're first kicking off, if we can't always, because sometimes it takes travel, I like them to see Melinda teach a class and me teach a class, so they can immediately see how two different personalities are going to teach a class. Because my wife is more like clinical when she's teaching a class, and I'm more inspiring and energetic, right? People buy with me out of sheer energy. People buy out of her out of sheer clinicalness, right? And I want them to see that either way is fine. And you can be completely different than both of us, but it just gives them a real life example of how you don't have to be like one of us. You can be you, and we tell them that. And then we're like talent scouts, and we're just like noticing when people's talents come out, and we just call it out. Was that your activator getting started? That was awesome. Or we'll call out when we're doing something. That's totally my woo. I'm just trying to win you over right now. All right, just smile. We'll move on. Right? And so we talk about the language of strengths. It's kind of like becoming fluent in a new language, but it's a common language that we can all speak. And so those are some things that we do that I think everyone could do. You could all have people take strengths. You could all go over the theme insight cards with them. You could all mentor with balance, and you can all study success. And if you do those simple things, you'll change your culture. Is that helpful?
Wow.
Nailed it.
So powerful. So powerful. I was trying to capture it all and put it in the chat as you were speaking, because that was golden. I think if we can just simply bring out that brilliance that's in them and let it shine here in doTERRA, those are some great ideas on bringing it home and bringing it to your teams and bringing it to your culture so strengths can thrive, so you can thrive and your people can thrive, because there are so many more waiting for this incredible revolution to get to them, right? And we turn up the insights and the brilliance on our teams, and that's when the magic happens. So beautiful. Thank you so much, Jeremy.
You're welcome. All right. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, we will share the top notes there from the end there on the post. Okay, Nisha? But yeah, just on the Facebook post where we posted this originally. And we'll post the recording there as well. Hope it can serve you for many years to come. We're hoping for a lot of goodness coming from strengths in the future and strengths in doTERRA. Thanks for bringing it, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's time for the Strengths Revolution.
All right, Strengths Revolution. Keep it going, everybody. Let's do this.
Thank you all. Have a great day.
Hey, bye.
Go play in your strengths.
Yeah.